A scream cuts through the night. Floodlights slice across a jungle compound as men in torn shirts run for their lives. They called it Crouching Tiger Villa, a fortress built deep in the jungles of Myanmar by one of China's most powerful crime families. When the shooting stopped, dozens were dead. A year later, in a Chinese courtroom, a judge read one word: death. 11 members of the Ming family executed. But this wasn't justice. It was cleanup. Because the empire they built was born under Beijing's watch. Hidden deep in the hills of Myanmar's Shan state lies a city that was never meant to exist. A place built not by governments or nations, but by crime families. Its name is Laukkai, a border outpost where Myanmar ends and China begins. On paper, it's part of Myanmar. In reality, it has always belonged to whoever could buy it, arm it, or corrupt it. When the world shut its eyes, the Ming family moved in. They came from across the border in Yunnan. Merchants turned traffickers, smugglers turned millionaires. And in a few short years, they transformed Laukkai into their personal kingdom. Casinos lined the streets, powered by Chinese gamblers seeking what they couldn't have at home. Drug money flowed through the hotels. And when online scams exploded across Asia, the Mings were ready. They built compounds that could hold thousands of workers, promising high salaries and luxury, then turned those same workers into prisoners. By 2018, the city had taken on a new name, whispered in Chinese forums: the city that shouldn't exist. A lawless zone run by warlords, militia, and money. And at the heart of it stood a fortress so large, so feared, locals called it Crouching Tiger Villa. From the outside, it looked like a luxury resort: villas, fountains, neon lights. Inside, it was a prison. Tens of thousands of people, mostly Chinese, trapped behind its gates, forced to run scams that would steal billions from victims around the world. And the man who ruled it all was Ming, the quiet patriarch whose family built an empire out of desperation and deceit. His power stretched across borders. He paid militias for protection, bribed officials for silence, and made sure no one ever saw what was happening behind those walls. For nearly a decade, no one dared to touch him. Until one night, when the gunfire began, and the world finally noticed what the Mings had built. Before we continue, if you're finding stories like this worth telling, please subscribe. It helps us keep uncovering what others try to hide. From the sky, Crouching Tiger Villa looked like paradise. Dozens of villas, golden roofs glinting under the Myanmar sun, ringed by gardens and swimming pools. But every gate, every hallway, every door was locked from the outside. Inside, the Mings ran what survivors would later call a factory of deceit. Each floor was divided into scam rooms, one for romance schemes, another for crypto, another for fake investments. Every worker had a headset, a fake identity, and a quota. Those who failed were beaten. Those who tried to escape were never seen again. Many of them weren't criminals. They were victims, young men and women from China, Thailand, Malaysia, and Laos. They'd been promised jobs in customer service, hospitality, or tech. When they arrived, their passports were taken and the doors locked. At night, they'd hear the screams echo through the halls. A man begging for water, a woman crying for her family, and guards laughing as they passed by. The Mings built this system with precision. They used psychologists to script fake love messages for romance scams. They bought stolen data to personalize each attack, and they sold hope. Fake investment dashboards that showed profits rising, right until the moment the victim's money disappeared. In just a few years, the villa became the engine room of what investigators would call the scandemic. A web of cybercrime that reached from the jungles of Myanmar to bank accounts across the world. But what made it unstoppable wasn't just the technology. It was protection. The Mings had it from every direction: Local militias guarded the roads. Police looked the other way. And across the border in China, officials ignored the whispers. Because the Mings weren't just criminals. They were useful. They kept gamblers out of China, laundered money for elites, and kept the region's chaos profitable. As long as the money flowed, no one asked questions. For years, Crouching Tiger Villa stood untouchable, a kingdom of lies hidden behind walls of silence. But that silence was about to break. Because in the fall of 2023, something happened that even the Mings couldn't control. Hundreds of captives tried to run, and their escape would ignite a war that would bring the entire Ming Empire to its knees. It began with a whisper. Workers in Crouching Tiger Villa had spent weeks planning in secret, stealing scraps of food, memorizing guard shifts, marking which gates stayed unlocked for deliveries. They didn't want money anymore. They just wanted to live. On the night of October 20th, 2023, the air over Laukkai was thick with rain. Lightning flashed across the jungle, and somewhere near midnight, someone shouted the word every prisoner had waited to hear. Run! Hundreds of people surged through the compound. Men tore down fences with their bare hands. Women carried the injured on their backs. Guards fired warning shots, then real ones. Bodies fell into the mud, but some made it out. They ran through the forest, barefoot, bleeding, hunted by dogs and drones. Several reached the border and leaked videos of the chaos, clips that spread across Chinese social media before censors could react. For the first time, the public saw what Laukkai really was, a slave city built on China's doorstep. Within days, outrage exploded online. Families recognized missing relatives in the videos. State media tried to bury the footage, but it was too late. The story had broken open, and Beijing could no longer pretend it didn't know. The Ming family panicked. Ming Guoping, the patriarch, ordered mass lockdowns across the compound. Dozens of captives were executed as warnings, but the walls were already cracking, both in the villa and inside the system that protected it. Because the escape hadn't just exposed the Mings. It had exposed something bigger, a multi-billion-dollar scam industry that stretched across borders, propped up by militias, politicians, and businessmen. Many of them with ties to China itself. And Beijing, embarrassed on the world stage, was about to respond the only way it knew how, with force. When the first videos of the escape reached China, they spread faster than censors could delete them. Thousands of comments flooded Weibo and WeChat. Parents demanded to know why their children were trapped in a foreign jungle. Some even named the families responsible, and one name kept appearing again and again: Ming. For years, Beijing had quietly tolerated Laukkai's criminal economy. It kept gamblers out of mainland China, and the money, though dirty, often flowed back home. But now, the outrage was too public, too viral. The illusion of control had shattered. In late 2023, China's Ministry of Public Security issued a demand. Myanmar's army had to clean house, or China would. Under mounting pressure, the Myanmar junta launched a massive campaign in Shan State. They called it Operation 1027. Helicopters circled over the border towns. Militias were disarmed, compounds raided, traffickers hunted, and when the first arrests began, the Ming family's decade of immunity ended overnight. Ming Guoping fled his villa and tried to broker a deal through local officials. Witnesses say that when he realized there would be no protection left, he took his own life. His death was kept quiet, but his empire crumbled in days. More than 13,000 suspects were detained across the Kokang region. Hundreds were extradited to China, handcuffed, and flown in military transport planes. Among them were dozens of Ming relatives, brothers, cousins, wives, sons, all facing charges of fraud, trafficking, torture, and murder. To Beijing, the crackdown was a chance to show power. State media broadcast the extraditions as victory footage, China's justice reaching beyond its borders. But inside China, the message was different. This wasn't just about crime. It was about control. The same system that once allowed the Mings to thrive was now erasing them, to prove it still ruled the shadows. Within months, the Ming family went from untouchable elites to prisoners awaiting trial. And what came next would stun even those who thought they'd seen how far Beijing would go. The trial took place far from the border, in a quiet courtroom in Wenzhou, Zhejiang province, chosen not for convenience, but for control. There would be no foreign media, no family witnesses, no leaks. Only cameras from China's state broadcaster, waiting to record the message Beijing wanted the world to hear. For months, investigators pieced together the Ming Empire, its casinos, its trafficking routes, its network of scam centers stretching across Myanmar. Prosecutors called it the largest transnational cybercrime network ever dismantled. They accused the Mings of defrauding victims of more than 10 billion yuan, or about 1.4 billion US dollars, of laundering money through shell companies, and of overseeing the torture and deaths of workers inside Crouching Tiger Villa. The Ming family members were lined up in court, 39 in total. Some were defiant. Others wept as the judge read their names. And when he reached the final line, the courtroom fell silent. 11 death sentences, 5 more with reprieve, 23 life and long-term sentences. Within hours, state media published the photos, the red seals, the courtroom, the headline, "Justice delivered for cross-border crimes." But there was something unusual about the way it was framed. There were no references to China's oversight failures, no mention of the officials who once profited from the same scam money. The narrative was simple: evil punished, order restored. Outside China, analysts saw something else: a purge disguised as justice. Because for nearly a decade, the Ming Empire operated under Beijing's nose, paying taxes, bribes, and protection money to Chinese networks. When it became a public embarrassment, those same networks needed a scapegoat. And the Mings, once useful, became disposable. The death sentences were a warning to traffickers, to corrupt officials, and to anyone who thought power could hide behind borders. But even as Beijing celebrated its victory, the same scam operations were already rebuilding elsewhere, under new names, new families, and new flags. China had destroyed the Ming dynasty, but it hadn't destroyed the business. It had only driven it deeper underground. Beijing called it victory, but scam empires don't die, they migrate. While the Mings made billions through deception, you can make money the right way, with real research and legitimate investing. Check the link in the description for a discount to Seeking Alpha, global investment analysis trusted by serious investors. But the truth was darker. As Myanmar shut its borders, the same scam networks resurfaced in Cambodia. Same recruiters, same scripts, same crimes, only new names on the gates. And as the money started flowing again, the victims changed too. Not just Chinese citizens, but Americans, Europeans, and anyone lured by the promise of easy profit. Back in Laukkai, the jungle is reclaiming what's left. Crouching Tiger Villa stands half abandoned, its fountains dry, its walls marked by bullets from the night of the escape. Families across China still search for sons and daughters who never came home. The Ming Empire burned, but its ashes became the foundation for the next one. Every empire built on lies ends this way, quietly, without heroes, buried under its own deceit. And if you think this story ends here, it doesn't. Because across the border, another empire was falling. Not in the jungle, but in the heart of Beijing. Go watch our video on Lai Xiaomin, the banker who stole billions inside China's state machine, kept 100 mistresses, 100 mansions, and met one final sentence: death. It's live now, right here on this channel. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I'm John, and this is Silk Street, Power, Betrayal, collapse,